The life of an outlaw isn't a cakewalk, let alone steering a ship full of them. Imagine the notorious entities like the Mafia, Yakuza, or the drug syndicates, with their illicit activities flourishing on well-defined business models. Some of these organizations, believe it or not, have even surpassed the fiscal prowess of Wall Street. In this video, we will be diving into the dark underbelly of these societies. We're about to unravel the 10 wealthiest crime syndicates that have ever existed. Number 10. D Company. How often does India come up in discussions about organized crime? Rarely, if ever. This oversight might be due to insufficient research or simply a lack of attention. Regardless, the relative obscurity suits Dawood Ibrahim, the founder of D Company, who currently ranks third on the FBI's most wanted list for his ties to terrorism. Established in Mumbai in the 70s, D Company initially dealt in heroin and opium trafficking, but over time it expanded its operations to include supporting and financing Al-Qaeda. The criminal network reportedly earns at least $6.7 billion annually, but this figure is speculative at best, as Dawood has been remarkably adept at covering his tracks. In fact, since orchestrating the 1993 Mumbai bombings, he has successfully evaded the grasp of international law enforcement agencies such as Interpol, the CIA, and the FBI. From his undisclosed location, he continues to steer his criminal empire from behind the scenes. Number 9. The Sinaloa Cartel. The drug trade is a lucrative industry. This fact is universally acknowledged, even by entities like the CIA. Having delved into the extraordinary operations of the Medellin Cartel, it seems fitting to cast the spotlight on its successor as the world's largest cartel, the infamous Sinaloa Cartel. Official figures indicate that this criminal network amasses a minimum of $3 billion per year. However, I find that number surprisingly modest, and here's why. The Sinaloa Cartel is presently one of the world's largest, controlling 60% of the drug profits. So the primary question becomes, what is the total worth of the drug market? Depending on who you ask, the answer ranges from $6.5 billion to a staggering $500 billion. This vast spectrum means that no one can pinpoint the exact earnings. However, one thing is certain, the Sinaloa Cartel holds sway over more than half of this market. The brainchild of the infamous El Chapo Guzman, whose life story is riveting enough to warrant its own movie, the cartel has been controlled by him both from prison and while on the run. Number 8. Kimura. Can you imagine an organization without a central leadership accumulating $4.9 billion? It might seem like a puzzle from your living room, but for members of the Kimura Cartel, the answer is quite straightforward. Heritage, honor, and hierarchy. Founded in Italy in the early 17th century and still active today, the Kimura Cartel initially comprised disparate criminals, united by a singular ambition: wealth accumulation. By the 19th century, politicians had inadvertently armed this organized criminal cohort with the tools to topple the existing monarchy. Once they'd played a pivotal role in such a profound historical transition, the Kimura Cartel started shifting its objective from riches to power. Gathering power isn't inherently problematic, but when intertwined with illicit activities like gambling, trafficking, and counterfeiting, you can be sure the government will take notice, which is precisely what transpired. However, by the time the authorities took action, it was too late. The Kimura Cartel had already spread its influence globally, maintaining a stranglehold on the waste management systems in Naples, Italy. Not bad for a criminal syndicate that's been around for 4 centuries. Number 7. 'Ndrangheta. Italy's enduring entanglement with organized crime isn't just a Hollywood stereotype. You may not be familiar with the 'Ndrangheta, but they are a crucial component of the international Italian mafia network. Their reported earnings? A cool $4.5 billion. However, I believe this estimation is likely on the low end, and here's why. The 'Ndrangheta, a mob established in Calabria in the 19th century, mainly deals in the cocaine trade, and over the years they've evolved into one of Europe's leading cocaine traffickers. But that's not the whole story. What sets this organization apart is their knack for maintaining amicable ties with other criminal groups. More often than not, they opt for negotiation over violence, making them more allies than adversaries, and a notably challenging target for law enforcement agencies. In more recent years, the 'Ndrangheta, with its 2 centuries of criminal history, has delved into money laundering, funneling funds into legitimate businesses to cleanse their inexhaustible wealth. If you've got a startup idea and aren't particularly bothered about the origin of their riches, they might just be the investors you're looking for. Number 6. The Medellin Cartel. Were the Medellin Cartel still in existence today, it would undoubtedly top this list. At its peak, this drug trafficking behemoth was perhaps the most formidable and well-organized cartel, not just in Colombia, but globally. Its notoriety was such that the United States deemed it a quasi-terrorist group, and for those unfamiliar, the infamous Pablo Escobar was the mastermind behind this cartel's inception. Mentioning Pablo immediately conjures images of unfathomable riches, and I assure you there's more fact than fiction in those stories. Escobar established the cartel in his 20s in Medellin, Colombia. According to official records, the organization generated over $20 billion per year, primarily from illicit cocaine trade, with a dash of trafficking, political violence, and thuggery, as well as the transportation of criminally exotic materials. I'll leave the specifics to your imagination. Now, if you're skeptical about the Medellin Cartel's immense wealth, let it be known that Pablo wasn't the only certified billionaire within its ranks. Number 5. Yamaguchi Gumi. While the name Yamaguchi Gumi may not ring a bell, you've undoubtedly heard of the Yakuza, Japan's counterpart to the Italian Mafia. Just as Kimura is a part of the Italian Mafia, Yamaguchi Gumi forms a segment of the Japanese Yakuza. Now, let's delve deeper. Those familiar with the Yakuza know that they're among the most disciplined criminal organizations globally. They adhere to such strict rules that a breach warrants a penance ritual known as yubitsume, which essentially involves severing a portion of your little finger as a sign of remorse. The largest faction within the Yakuza's ranks is the Yamaguchi Gumi, founded in 1916 by Harukichi Yamaguchi. Currently, they boast at least 20,400 active members and an additional 18,600 associates. The syndicate's primary revenue streams include extortion, gambling, the sex industry, farming, drug trafficking, stock market manipulation, and internet pornography. It's estimated that the Yamaguchi Gumi pulls in a yearly revenue of approximately $6.6 billion. However, I believe the actual figure is likely considerably higher. Number 4. Sonsevskaya Bratva. It shouldn't come as a shock that Russia has its own brand of mafia. The Sonsevskaya Bratva, the largest and most potent Russian mafia, rakes in an estimated annual revenue of $8.5 billion. From contract assassinations to money laundering and drug trafficking, there's hardly an illicit activity that this Russian mafia offshoot doesn't engage in. It wouldn't be an overstatement to suggest they have a stake in every illegal enterprise. In contrast to the highly centralized Yakuza, with its clear hierarchy, this organization operates somewhat differently. The group consists of 9,000 members, split into 10 semi-independent brigades that largely function autonomously. However, when the need arises, they pool their resources and collaborate effectively. Their finances are managed by a 12-person council that convenes regularly in various parts of the world. These gatherings are often disguised as celebratory events, a testament to the fact that reality can be as intriguing, if not more, than fiction. Number 3. Gulf Cartel. As one of Mexico's most long-standing criminal organizations, the Gulf Cartel has certainly earned its spot on this list. With its stronghold in Mexico, the cartel actively traffics narcotics across the United States and even as far as Europe. But drugs aren't their only area of expertise. They are notoriously infamous for high-profile kidnappings and their use of extreme violence. They seem to have a hand in almost every conceivable criminal enterprise they can infiltrate. Despite bearing the brunt of anti-drug agency operations more than any other cartel, including the Sinaloa, they have managed to endure. Today, with an estimated value of around $9.9 billion, they continue to be one of the wealthiest criminal organizations predominantly operating out of Mexico. Number 2. Kozinostra. Does the soundtrack of The Godfather start playing in your head just at the mention of it? It does in mine. Among criminal organizations, few are as widely recognized and, strangely enough, revered as Cosa Nostra, more commonly known as the Mafia. The group's roots trace back to the 1800s in Sicily, Italy, reputedly beginning as a prison gang that retained a structure and set of values that continue to define the modern mafia. Over time, Cosa Nostra moved from prisons and small villages to positions of greater influence. During periods of political instability, they partnered with opposing government factions, executing assassinations and other forms of sabotage. Then, the iron-fisted reign of Mussolini proved too brutal for even the mafia bosses, causing them to seek refuge in the US and Canada, where they continued their operations. From extortion, gambling, gambling and prostitution to money laundering, Kozinostra's criminal activities are vast. With a global membership of at least 25,000 members and 250,000 affiliates, they collectively generate an astonishing $50 billion. Number 1. Triads. The Triads stand as perhaps the most entrenched and fearsome criminal organization to have emerged in recent history. Originating from Hong Kong, Macau, and Taiwan, they have since expanded their operations to regions as diverse as South Africa, the US, Britain, South America, and Russia. One of their primary illegal enterprises is human trafficking, with an estimated 100,000 individuals transported worldwide annually. It's a staggering figure. Other illicit activities they engage in encompass drug trafficking, racketeering, and an assortment of crimes that cater to their interests. Their organizational structure is largely decentralized, which is why efforts to dismantle them have proven challenging. A low-ranking Triad member could easily be mistaken for a high-ranking official, as a significant amount of autonomy is granted within the organization. Consequently, the exact mechanics of their financial operations remain a mystery. What is certain, however, is that they possess a staggering amount of wealth. Some estimates put it at $13 billion, while others suggest even higher figures. The true extent of their wealth, much like the organization itself, remains shrouded in secrecy. That was all for this episode, folks. If you enjoyed it, don't hesitate to show your support by hitting the like button and dropping a comment. Until we meet again, stay cool and see ya.